Hi, I'm Kevin Less, show chairman of Aripex 2017, and you are listening to Stamp Show Here Today.
Look at them, madam. Have you ever in your entire life seen anything so beautiful?
I'm sorry, I don't know anything about stamps.
This is the gentle art of philately, otherwise known as stamp collecting. Here's a pile of stamps carefully culled from swap meets and garage sales.
Rufus, what are you thinking of?
Oh, I was just thinking of all the years I wasted collecting stamps.
Oh, like stamp collecting. Oh, that's all right. That's quite a nice hobby, that.
Yes, but it's not enough. Don't you understand? I'm lonely. I'm so terribly lonely.
All right, Homer! You beat those stamp Nazis with good old-fashioned American complaining.
Oh, if it weren't for you, we'd be at the mercy of weekend philatelists.
You know, why didn't you just say stamp collectors?
Because I'm tired of dumbing myself down for you.
From Spain and two from Japan, I got a couple from Israel and Azerbaijan. I got a plenty from Poland, but none from Sudan or from Fiji or Uzbekistan.
Stamp collecting happens when we dream together.
This week, we have moved our equipment to the Aripex 2017 Stamp Show. With our hidden microphones, we will be listening in on the local wild philatelists in their natural surroundings. Let's see what they have to say.
I'm Kevin Less, show chairman of Aripex 2017. We're here live at the Mesa Convention Center with Kaz Dreyfus from Professional Stamp Experts.
So what do you collect?
I collect Canada and British North America stamps. That's what I currently collect. I've collected many different areas of stamps, and I've dealt in many different areas of stamps, following trends in the market as they emerge. Currently, I understand the Asia market is very hot, not just in stamp collecting, but also in all areas of collectible items, whether it be antiques, collectibles, art. There's a big demand in the marketplace.
Then why are you collecting Canada?
Because my family heritage, very good question. My family heritage is from Canada.
Oh, where from?
My grandparents lived in Edmonton, Alberta.
Okay.
And my grandmother lived in the metropolis of Medicine Hat, Alberta.
Center Canada.
Yes, and my father, when he was young, would purchase stamps at, I believe, at the post office. And possibly a local stamp store, because he had some early Israeli stamps that I don't think they sold at the Canadian post office.
No, I don't think so either.
And so he, at a young age, I have two older brothers and an older sister. My older brother and I were introduced to stamps when my father gave us an assortment of loose stamps and let us choose which ones we wanted. Because I was the younger brother, I had second choice. My older brother likes stamps, sports stamps, and he really loves stamps with animals on them. So he happened to pick out that. I was intrigued by the old stamps with their kind of intricate designs. To me, they looked more interesting. So the ones I picked out were, I ended up finding out that they were basically engraved stamps, and they didn't have perforations. My brother's stamps had perforations all the way around the stamp, and I gravitated to the ones, just the design, that they didn't have perforations around the stamp.
So you wound up with Canada number 1 and 2, and he wound up with the 1950s Christmas issue.
Basically, well, I did have a penny black, a used copy.
Oh, that's good.
It was black with Queen Victoria, really nicely engraved copy. It ended up being a Norway number 1, a blue stamp.
I love those.
It had a lion on it.
Yeah.
What was interesting about my father's stamps is they weren't just average copies. They ended up being very large 4-margin copies with interesting cancellations. So all the stamps that I picked out ended up being termed more classic type stamps.
Right.
And my brother's stamps that he picked out ended up being labeled more like wallpaper stamps. They were pretty. And what I discovered going forward in time is that a lot of people, when they inherit their stamp collection, as far as value goes, if they continue collecting, the items that they inherit, they didn't have to pay for them, so they don't really know what they're worth. But when they've purchased something, they know what they paid. So if you've purchased something more recently and you go to sell it, you have an expectation based on what you paid. When you inherit something and you have no idea what someone paid, you don't have the same expectation because you don't really know what they're worth.
That's a really good point. I like that.
And so the Aripex show, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. Our purpose is to encourage the hobby of stamp collecting.
Of course.
And it's getting harder and harder in today's technological world to do that because there are more diversions for kids. In fact, there are more diversions for adults. I've noticed when I dine out, and I dine out quite a bit, and it can be a casual restaurant or it can be a very nice restaurant, everyone is on their cell phone, usually ignoring the waiter or to order. And I find that troubling. I like to converse with someone when I'm dining, so my cell phone is usually in my pocket ringing, and I don't even notice it ringing. It probably has rung once or twice while I've been speaking with you. I figure it can wait. Nothing is that important where it can't wait, and yet what I see now in society is more people are just too dependent on that noise where you have a message and they don't know what it is and they have to look at it only to find it's another one of those retailers telling them about the latest web sale at a store. Something.
I agree with you. What I found from feedback from our listeners and other people, who don't listen but share on Facebook and stuff like that, they play with their stamps and shut everything else out.
Right.
It's really a way to get away from all that stuff.
Right, actually, that's true, and I used to be an avid hiker. I think probably before the real advent of cell phones. I've given it up, and I'm going to get back into it, and I'm going to find it curious to see if people are hiking and looking at their phones. My guess is they will be. A trend right now, I had a dog that was put down a couple of weeks ago, but I used to walk them daily, and I noticed a lot of the people walking their dogs in my neighborhood would be on their phone, and they had no idea what their dog was doing until they got home and looked at the bottom of their shoe. So it really, the diversion of hiking, I wasn't really thinking about anything in particular, but I was taking in where I was stepping, where I was climbing, looking at the natural surroundings, avoid stepping on the coral snake that went by. In the same manner that when I'm playing with my stamps, I'm not worrying about the breaking news on CNN. I'm not looking at my phone to see who has, a flash sale for the next hour for something I don't need or don't really care about. It clears my mind and I enjoy it. It's something that's relaxing to do. It's educational, and you learn a lot by doing it. A lot about history, geography. In the course of promoting stamp collecting at a stamp show, you then learn a lot of skills there's a lot of skills I picked up that I didn't have prior to volunteering. This is an all-volunteer position. All of our volunteers, myself included, earn exactly the same amount, zero.
Yes.
And yet I have most of the responsibility to make sure everything is paid for, everything is coordinated, and you end up dealing with hotels, negotiating rates, you deal with convention centers, you deal with a myriad of individuals getting your exhibit set up, your table set up, the dealers organized, the advertising, and this is a really good skill set that you could use with any company.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not very technologically advanced, and yet I am the webmaster of our website, which has been a challenge, and I do it by trial and error.
Actually, it's pretty good. It has everything in it. It loads quickly. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, you'll notice some of the photos for our awards are missing because I haven't figured out how to get the picture that's in media to appear on the screen. I understand someone who ran the website before me has done something that's preventing me from doing it. I'm not sure. I'll get it taken care of. It's a learning process. And it's interesting with regards to the exhibitors at our show this year. We have 248 exhibits, which is our capacity in our current space. What I find intriguing are not as the exhibits can be fascinating, like our 8-frame Grand Prix winner by Gordon Eubanks, who won in the New York World Show back in August of 2016. August.
Yeah.
That's on display, which has a fascinating display of early U.S. stamps and multiples that has a tremendous market value. I find the individual exhibitor behind the exhibit is what I find intriguing. We had our awards banquet last night, which we had a pretty good pickup of 60 people, which for us is a good showing for the awards banquet. It's interesting to see. I know some of the exhibitors that collect stamps and exhibit them as a pastime come from various backgrounds. We had several silicon.com startups that are very wealthy, and you would never know it by the way they dress.
Nope.
And that's what I find intriguing. Some people who are well off flash it, some people don't. The crowd we have don't flash it. With being modest, I was probably the best dressed person at the show, and I'm wearing a 10-year-old suit I wear to weddings and funerals. We had very wealthy individuals that exhibit, accepting their awards, and they're wearing tennis shoes. Probably for a medical reason, I'm not sure.
No, because they don't give a crap anymore.
They don't care.
Once you hit a certain amount, it's like, who cares?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, they're interesting. They're not necessarily what you would think. A lot of them are very down to earth. And I can understand the perspective of someone like that. It's hard to know who's really a friend and who's not. Do they like you because of what you have, or do they like you for you?
Well, speaking on behalf of quite a few of them, all of them that I've met, at a certain point, they just enjoy the hobby. They enjoy visiting. So let's see. Anything else you want to plug next year's show?
I always love to plug our show. It's always held, at least I've booked it for 5 years forward, the third week of February, held at the Mesa Convention Center. The light rail opened up last year within a 2-block walk of our venue. It connects to the Phoenix Marriott Mesa Hotel, which makes it convenient for a nice hotel to stay at. We are doing in 2019, we were granted a joint show with the American Philatelic Society, which will encompass the entire convention center and the entire hotel. So there'll be a lot more dealers and a lot more exhibits to choose from. Our show does charge admission, which we basically parlay back into things for the people that attend our show. We had a first day ceremony yesterday with the United States Postal Service.
The ugly hat stamp.
For the ugly Uncle Sam's hat stamp. We had free cake.
That was
our
good.
Organization provided.
That was
we
good.
paid for the cake, and people enjoyed the cake after the ceremony.
The cake is not a lie.
It was good. It was good.
That's a reference for computer people.
Oh, okay. But it was actually a lot of fun.
It is the second most highly attended first day ceremony I've ever seen.
Is it?
The first one was for the Special Olympics in
Right.
Irvine, which was, Special Olympics.
Right.
For just a definitive stamps for an extra half-ounce rate, you had a huge turnout. I mean, I walked in and I was shocked.
Which is interesting because I was afraid the venue, we had to pick a larger room. So you had to walk down two long hallways to get to the venue.
We couldn't find it.
And I thought people wouldn't show up, and I did show up to a full room. Of course, I think about half the people we paid to be there.
Oh.
No, I made that part up. They weren't paid, but I think they heard there would be cake served afterwards.
They said there's going to be cake. I'm going to find
They knew
this
there would
place.
be cake. And we always try to promote the organization that provided the cake is a local high school that has a culinary pastry arts program.
Give them a plug, because that cake was excellent.
It's EVIT, EVIT. It's a technology school located about 10 miles from the convention center. So I think they're nonprofit. I'm not positive. They were happy to produce the cake. I wanted them to tie into our show theme of celebrating ethnic diversity. In today's climate on the news, there's a lot of negativity in the news, and I wanted to pick something that celebrated it.
Our negativity is only directed at U.S. postage stamp design.
Okay, the design and the quantity of them, because it is at 49 cents. Our rate went back up for a 1 ounce stamp on January 22nd to 49 cents. It's hard for a young person to collect even a single stamp of each issue. But you don't have to collect new issues. You could collect older stamps.
Collect used.
Right, and I noticed the first 8 frames I mentioned at our exhibit this year, those stamps transcend being a collectible.
Yeah.
They become, what's the word? They become commodities. Stamps become commodities, and they're a very popular commodity when they're very rare. The reason being, in times where you may have to move quickly, if you were living in Syria or Iraq and you needed to leave, and you had to take wealth with you, stamps are very light.
Yep.
A pile of valuable stamps don't weigh very much.
Yeah.
They're easy to transport. Try doing that with a Monet painting or a fancy sports car. It may look great in your garage, but if you have to go somewhere fast, someone's going to notice you in that car.
Collectible pottery.
Small, pottery. It's breakable.
Yeah.
So it's probably one of the best type of those items to own, and that it's portable, and that's why a lot of people with money tend to get into it. For that reason, and the fun and relaxation of it. But that's also, I think that's also what keeps the hobby alive, is that aspect of it.
Well, thank you very much. Okay. That was excellent.
Thank you for having me. It's my first podcast, and I look forward to another one soon.
Good. You'll see me here next year.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Why don't you tell people who you are?
Okay. My name is Bill Wojtowicz. I am a member of the Mesa and Phoenix clubs. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's our clubs that really put on this particular show. And at one time, I used to be the assistant chairman for these shows. But I resigned about 3 years ago, and I just wanted to be what was called a troubleshooter. Wherever you need somebody, that's where I will help out at. And
well, this is more than troubleshooting. I wanted to talk to you specifically because I think that what you're doing right now is really important for the hobby and important for the community. So why don't you tell people what you're doing here?
Well, one of the things that we're really doing here is when people bring in usually accumulations that they inherited from somebody in their family. I'm using the word accumulation because the vast majority are not collections. Collections are the types of things we have on exhibit here at the show. They will bring in an egg carton. They will bring in little metal boxes. They will bring in whatever the stamps have been put in. And thinking because it was from their grandfather or their dad or something who has now passed away, and he died when he was in his 80s, it's all old stuff. And it is going to be able to put the kids through college.
Well, yeah. Well, if it's a really super cheap college, like free.
Free, absolutely.
And it's old if you define old that way.
That's right. I'm old. I'm going to be 75.
Yeah.
My wife wants to get rid of me. Okay? I'm not worth anything. So they think just because things are getting old, okay, they're going to be worth a lot of money. So I have to, first of all, be willing to tell them what they really have. And then to suggest what they're going to be able to do with it. They're either going to want to keep it for memento purposes. They may want to pass it down now to the other grandchildren. They
Or
may
more
want to.
likely-
They may want to give it to our youth department.
Yeah.
Because most of it isn't really worth anything, or it's not worth what dealers are willing to pay for, because it doesn't have the so-called pedigree that they like to sell. And that sometimes is hard to tell them. But when they do have some things that are worthwhile, okay, I know the 47 dealers that are here, and I will recommend different dealers to them. I says, well, this particular dealer, for example, handles Germany. And a lot of the stuff you do have is from Germany. So he may be willing, to buy that. But don't go to the first dealer out here who sells U.S. stamps, because he's not going to be interested in your Germany. So I try to put a situation where they don't have to waste time. Now, I do the same thing with senior centers in the area. I talk to adults, because a lot of them will come and tell me, because I'm I'm the vice president of the Mesa Coin Club Association.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, so a lot of them will come to me with coins, and they also come with currency that they picked up, old silver certificates and stuff like that. And they want to know what to do, or who is fair, who could they go to sell these things. Because, to be honest with you, we are in Arizona where there are 25% of the population is senior citizen, and they are victims of all kinds of shams.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons I want to talk to you, because it is really, really easy to get ripped off with the stamp collection if you don't know what you have.
Absolutely, or a coin collection.
Or a coin collection.
That's correct. And that's what I try to educate them, to at least give them some knowledge so they're not going to get ripped off.
Yeah. We had 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, 3 podcasts ago, we were talking about the gold for sale on the corners.
Oh, yes.
And a person went in who is a coin collector, because we wanted to do our undercover investigation.
I have done that before with other organizations.
Oh, what did they offer you? What percentage?
Well, I didn't do this particular one, but for example, one of the ones that I did in Scottsdale and Mesa and Phoenix when I moved here, and one of the clubs said, let's do an undercover investigation. And what we were doing, we didn't go to coin shops or anything.
No.
We went to these jewelry shops, or the places that are advertising in the paper.
Yes.
Bring us your coins, bring us your silver and stuff. They were offering anywhere from 50 to 25%.
We found 30% to 33%.
That is correct. 25 to 50, you cut that in half, it's going to be about that.
And these were $20 gold pieces.
Absolutely.
These were things that had no risk to them whatsoever. And the worst thing was they went to one and they said, oh, these are fake.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, so now you're buying a fake coin for $10. It's actually a $20 gold piece. It's
worth over $900 or
Exactly,
$1,000, depending on what gold was at that particular period.
exactly.
Oh, yes, we found that all over. And I use that to present a program at one of the senior centers to show them, don't go to these jewelry, don't go to the Holiday Inn where they have come. These guys have spent a great deal of money and they plan to make a big profit.
Yep.
And they're going to give you the least amount that they could possibly get away with.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I'm an educator.
Coin dealers still make money, but
Yes.
if gold is at $1,200, they'll give you $1,050.
That's correct.
They'll take like an 8% or a 10%, but they're not going to take 70%.
No, that's the reason why I tell them. But of course, the newspapers, the telephone books don't sort of like exist like they used to. So they can't go and look under coin dealers and find them. So I will point out, because for example, in the Scottsdale area, there are 4 of them, of which 2 of them advertise. 2 of them don't. So I try to let them know these are the 4, and I'll give them a card or something with their addresses on. These will give you pretty close to their market value. And in fact, yesterday, I had 5 or 6 people who also had coin collections. And when they found out that I'm wearing, for example, the Mesa coin shirt, not a stamp shirt, they wanted to know about coins they have. So not only did I do stamps yesterday, I did coins and currency.
I think that from the dealers who travel around, I think all of them have encountered people who collect both stamps and coins.
Absolutely.
It's very, very common.
We're
for
cross-dressers.
Exactly. It's very easy to move from one to the other.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Because there's a historical significance between the two.
Yes.
I was one of the very first in the world of stamp collecting to introduce what is known as display material. Display material in the stamp collecting world means you have additional things outside of the stamp world to add color to the exhibit and to add more historical value. And I did the story of the Civil War. Okay, and the Civil War, of course, it had the stamps of the period, the patriotic covers and everything else. But that was the period where stamps became used as money because metal was all being used for weapons and things of that nature. So I showed the coins of the period of time, the first notes, because we never had government notes at that time. Each state had issued their own money. So the federal notes came out. And that was because there were no gold coins, there were no silver coins. Everything was going, the government was confiscating them, having you turn it in because they needed to buy weapons from Great Britain and stuff like that.
And they wouldn't take care of currency.
That's correct. So what I did is I did an exhibit on all of that, which basically broke all the rules of stamp collecting.
Yeah.
Because you're showing coins, that's our competition. But it ended up winning several grand awards, and it became one of the most popular exhibits in the United States from 2002 to 2007. I sold it in 2007, and it introduced the fact that there's nothing wrong combining the two. And not only did I didn't care if I won medals for that. They won in many shows the most popular award. It was what they learned something.
Yeah.
They didn't learn about little perforations around the stamp. They didn't learn if something was a dark green or a yellow green color. They learned that people use stamps and they put them on little pieces of paper or they put them in round discs, and that was the money they spent. They couldn't believe these things.
On this podcast, we're all about the backstory. You know, if we told people per varieties on New Zealand number 27, we'd have one listener and he'd be collecting New Zealand number 27.
Yes, that would be it, and that was the whole thing. And I believe that exhibits need to be done so that they interest the public, not turn them off.
That I 100% agree.
A young kid is going to be interested in a space collection that he sees, showing the different satellites that the world has put up. He's going to care very little about C-19 airmail in all of its different shades and plate blocks, and it was issued in sheets or imperfect. That's of no interest to our young generation.
Yes. No, I am right on board with you with that one.
Yeah. So I wanted to see real changes rather than this whole idea that this is for classics and it's for people who have wallets.
Yeah.
There's unlimited for the. I'll be political for the Donald Trumps of the world.
Yeah. No. It's not even. No, looking out on the, we have the Gordon Eubanks.
Absolutely.
Put his out.
Yes. And $15 to $17 million worth of stuff.
Exactly.
That's right.
So I mean, one cover in there is almost $3 million, just shy of $3 million.
That's right.
But right behind it is another exhibit that probably, a couple thousand, and on the far corner there's a Susan B. Anthony,
which is a beautiful exhibit,
which is gorgeous.
Absolutely.
But only one item in it, I'll bet you, is worth more than $50.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right. So I used to, like last year was my last exhibit, and what I did is I showed soldiers' mail from World War II in the Pacific, stuff from Guadalcanal.
Oh yeah.
Okay, the capture of Saipan, Guam, Okinawa. These were soldiers' mail, and there was also mail that was trying to be sent to them. Okay, but of course, you're not going to get it in the middle of a battlefield. And a lot of it will then be marked by the military, killed in action and returned.
Oh.
But they make sure they don't return it until they're sure that the family has been notified.
Yeah.
Because what a shock it would be, you getting a return letter marked, killed in action. And I did an exhibit on that. Now, none of that stuff is rare or expensive.
Yeah.
You can't find it, though, because most of it has been kept in people's little family chests for the history of members of the family.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it was extremely interesting. More people came to see me. They found that one of the most interesting exhibits to read, what some of the families wrote. And to see how, I even had one that had dried blood. All over. Okay, but I got the last award that you're allowed to even give in the stamp collecting for it, which is a bronze.
Yeah.
And the judge wrote down, very interesting, but this is not a stamp exhibit.
Yeah, and that's
correct. And as a result, I'm not exhibiting anymore. Because my job is to educate the public on things.
Well, they changed those rules.
That's what I understand.
Ago.
That's what I understand.
And a year ago, because people like me were yelling, and I have a microphone. I can yell and have 17,000 people listen to me. I can call Lynn's and they'll go, "Oh, he's got a podcast. I think we'll listen to it." And I said, if you don't put stories into this, you're just going to turn everybody off.
That's right.
People collect stamps because of the history.
Yeah.
They don't collect stamps because this stamp here, instead of perf 11, is perf 11 and a half. That doesn't excite anybody.
So anyway, I look for these kinds of things because my job is to educate. I've been an educator for 55 years in education.
And you taught sixth graders.
I taught sixth graders. I taught college. I even taught Head Start. So I've taught every single area, but math was my big area. Math is what I taught for my last 15 to 20 years.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I would like to teach right now, but I'm too old to be certified in Arizona to teach because I'm bored.
Oh, well, there you go.
I'm bored. I would really like to help out, and they could use some master math teachers with it. So anyway.
So getting back to Stamps in the Attic, what interesting things have walked in over the last 2 or 3 days?
I've had a great revenue collection come in, a guy. Unfortunately, his collection is gorgeous. It was one of the nicest that I have seen. It's mostly had to do with the wine tax stamps, cigarette tax stamps, snuff, narcotics, and stuff like that.
Okay, now backing up real quick. Was it the actual collector who came in or somebody who inherited it from
This
the
was the collector. He built this whole thing up. Unfortunately, he bought most of his stamps, of which he spent several $1,000s on this collection, from one of the dealers in the country who's the most expensive. He really makes a big profit on everything he sells. Now he needs the money. So he decided now to sell it. And none of the dealers now will pay that kind of a price what he had invested in it.
He paid full retail plus.
Full retail plus.
And they need to buy at least wholesale. And they're going to hold on to it for
correct.
A long time,
So it was a gorgeous piece. He was willing to even sell it for half price. But half price is about what they would sell it for now. Okay, because this stuff was so promoted in newspapers and stuff, and on TV. You know how they had some of these infomercials on, where they're selling.
Reader's Digest.
That's correct. So unfortunately, he bought from the wrong source, but it is a gorgeous collection. One of the nicest I've ever seen in the revenue world. I had another person come in, and their grandfather was really a hunter. Back in Minnesota. He ate hunter. So he collected all the duck and hunting stamps. And it was complete. It wasn't just complete. He had every single one of the duck stamps with a plate number single. There are what are called plate blocks. But he collected them as plate number singles. He had all of those. Then he had every one of them on a license. Okay? And he had some of the artist drawings and everything of it. So it was one of the nicest collections that I had seen. Unfortunately, ducks are no longer as popular as they were 25 years ago. It was very popular.
They're still popular.
In some places, yes.
They had a high time. Yeah, like you said, about 20, 25 years ago, where
that's correct.
Everybody loved them.
That's right. Whereas now they're not as popular. So he wanted. There are 2 duck dealers here. Well, that's going to do any good. So you run into a few of those. And then I had one fellow who came here from Italy. He had just come to the United States, and he had some great European stamps with certificates and everything. The lowest one was maybe $2,000 or $3,000.
Wow!
Up to $15,000. He had a half a dozen. So he came to me and wanted me to look at them. And I looked at them. I said, wow, you have fantastic stuff here. It's all certified. He says, well, what do you think I could get for them? Well, I am not one who's going to be telling you what you're going to get for something. I have no idea. It's supply and demand. The fact that you're in Arizona with stamps that are basically Italian or from other Greece and stuff like that, Arizona is not the place you would bring those to sell. I says, if you really want to sell your stamps, you need to sell them on the East Coast, where the dealers are and where various cultural groups that have a lot of family members that look for that stuff, or the West Coast. New Mexico and Arizona are horrible places to bring stamps like that. And I says, there are 2 big auction dealers here who sell all over the world. Take it to them. But they're going to want to put it in an auction. They're not going to pay you out here.
Right.
Okay, and then of course they're going to want a percentage. So I said, you got these things. I says, why did you bring them here, though? Europe is the place really for stamps, not the United States. Anyway.
Well, I have a follow-up because I know what happened to that.
Oh, you do?
I know the auction company that he went to, and he got a very favorable agreement with them.
Uh-huh.
And the auction company was very happy because they actually do carry a lot of European material.
Absolutely.
And so the auction company was very happy because they could get him a very good price. And he was very happy because he negotiated down a good commission rate.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Because if he gave them all, for example, as a lot, that could end up being a pretty good amount of money rather than just give them 1 or 2 of the items.
Well,
he had about 5 or 6.
If he tried to sell it here, there probably isn't anybody on the floor that could give him the price
that he would try
he would be trying to get it. It's just more money than anybody has in their wallet right now.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah, Aripex is very, very good for that because we have 2 major auction houses here, and then we had 2 other ones who came and visited and walked around.
That's right. So okay, so they were doing the floor.
Right, so there were 4 auction representatives here.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah.
Because I knew of 2 of them for sure, which is Spinks, that's here, and Michael Aldrich, that's here.
Yes, and the other one that was walking around was Charles with H.R. Harmer.
Oh, okay.
And, of course, Chris Harmer with
I know.
Harmer Schau.
Yes.
So
that's interesting. Okay, because see, I've been kind of stuck in here. I haven't been able to see. I was totally amazed when I saw the winner, because I used to be a judge back in the 70s and 80s. So I like going around and trying to pick. What would I have picked? And what I had picked for my first 2 for Grand Award. Didn't even come close because the winner just totally shocked me. I was surprised because it was I think it was an Italian. No, it was an Irish exhibit.
Yes, it was. I haven't seen it yet. I saw the 2 grand awards that went out. But while I was looking, they were still putting up awards. So I said, I'll come back in half an hour when they're done putting up. Because I have an exhibit out there. I exhibited. This is my first show for exhibiting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
this is my first year of not exhibiting.
Oh, I'm taking over.
You're taking my place, so they didn't lose anything.
There you go.
Not coming in.
Well, excellent.
How did you do?
I got a Vermeil. I am incredibly happy.
Very nice.
Very, very happy.
Very nice for your first time. That is excellent.
Yep, the judge was very nice. She gave me some input on how to improve it.
Sure.
I thought it would be it's difficult when, I'm exhibiting 1850s material, and then Gordon Eubanks is exhibiting 1850s material, and it's like you compare the 2 of them, and it's like, well,
a first grader and a senior.
Exactly. But she said, no, you've got a totally different story than him, and you do have the ability to get a gold here, and I loved hearing that.
Yep. No, that's great. No, if you get a Vermeil, or a Vermeil, depending on how you want to say it, you are on the right track for gold.
Yeah.
Without any problem, providing you make different improvements or whatever is necessary.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Well, thank you very much for sharing with us.
Oh, I loved it. It reminded me of some of my old radio shows.
I'm Ken Martin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the American Philatelic Society.
Great. So, what'd you find at the show today? Because you were a judge today.
Oh, well,
excuse me, this weekend.
Yeah, I haven't had much chance to look around the show. What I found was MEPSI, the Mexican Elmhurst Philatelic Society International, is meeting here, and there are, I don't know, there must be 7 or 8 Mexico exhibits, literally, which go from pre-colonial time to about 1975. I think every major series. Great opportunity. I learned a lot about, more than I knew previously about Mexico stamps. There are also several, Canal Zone Philatelic Study Group was also meeting here. Not quite as many, more of those I think were single frame exhibits, but it doesn't have quite as long a history as Mexico either.
Well, I thought it was great because you had the MEPSI Society and the Canal Zone Society, and they brought their exhibits with them.
Absolutely.
So, it's a great way to enroll people in what you collect.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, overall, there were 59 competitive exhibits, which is pretty impressive.
Yep.
And a wide variety. Some of them were modern. You have an exhibit on the $2 inverted Jenny. You don't very often see an exhibit on a stamp that is still available at a few post offices. Probably not most post offices, but a few.
They're
out
for
here.
Sale out here, yeah.
Okay.
You could buy them here.
So you have that. You have some material from the 1700s. Certainly a number of exhibits on pre-stamp lists.
Yes.
So really a wide range. It would hard to believe that there wouldn't be something of interest to almost everybody.
So when are you going to exhibit?
I have an exhibit on blood donation, blood transfusion.
Yeah, but I've never seen it.
I exhibit it about once or twice a year.
Oh, okay.
I'm not taking it around to 25 shows. I showed it at the international show in Malaysia 2 or 3 years ago. I showed it once last year. I was shown at, I think it's Stepex. Elmira, New York. So, the last 2 weren't at national or WSP shows. One was at a local or regional. One was at an international show.
Both of them are much further than I could drive.
Yeah, it'd probably be shown somewhere at one World Series show, but I'm not looking to, see how many gold medals I can collect. In fact, a gold medal for my exhibit is unusual. I've gotten them, but normally it's going to be probably a vermeil at a national level show, which it's not the most important thing to me. Is not the medal level. I mean, part of it is to encourage people to donate blood to understand some of the history. It's been used in formats other than stamp exhibitions as well, just as an educational exhibit. It's good enough to get me the national level vermeil so I could qualify to be a judge. I don't have to worry about competing for a grand award at a show, though.
Was this the first time you judged?
No, I've judged.
Didn't think so, yeah.
I was accredited in 2002.
Oh, congratulations.
So I've probably judged at 50 shows, maybe, something like that. This is, in fact, 2 weeks ago, I was a judge at Sarasota. Next one I'm judging is Rochester in, I think it's May. And then I believe Omaha, September, I think. So I've actually been invited to judge at 9 shows this year. I've turned 4 is the most that I will consider. So I've turned 5 shows down, and I think 2 shows have already asked me for next year. So if somebody's an exhibitor or interested in judging, the APS can use more judges.
Great. Why don't you talk about Reno?
Reno is upcoming 2 weeks from now, or slightly less than 2 weeks from now. It's the APS winter or spring show. We have about 40 dealers, about 300 frames of exhibits. It'll have, there's an APS board meeting the day before the show starts. There's an APS general meeting where we'll recognize 25 and 50-year members of seminars and meetings of societies. It's a new location in recent times. I think the APS did have a meeting there 40 or 50 years ago before we were really running our own shows.
Yep. I saw the souvenir sheets from it.
Okay, yeah, I can't remember what year, or don't know what year off the top of my head, but it should be a good show. And we have some special things. We'll have There is a U.S. first day ceremony for a stamped envelope there.
I love the ceremonies.
Yep. There's also a personalized stamp, basically. That's a customized one that's being issued with the National Association of Letter Carriers for Stamp Out Hunger.
Okay.
In fact, there'll be some bins at the show for any showgoers who want to bring a can of food for the local food bank. And APS is actually making a $1,000 donation to the, I think it's the Northern Nevada Food Bank, who's partnering with the National Association of Letter Carriers, who's longed work, and was it Family, Bill Keane, I believe, who's a comic artist, Family.
I know him. I've seen him on Netflix.
Something like that.
Yes.
He will actually be at the show. He designed the customized stamp.
Oh, is he going to do a stand-up or anything there? Is he going to...
Stop me now. Don't stop me, 'cause I'm having a good time, having a good time. I'm a shooting star leaping through the sky like a tiger, defying the laws of gravity. I'm a racing car passing by like Lady Godiva. I'm gonna go, there's no stopping me. I'm burning through the sky, 200 degrees, that's why they call me Mr. Fahrenheit.
Because if you had him in a lecture and just let him loose,
I'm not aware in a lecture. I think he'll participate in the first day ceremony for that customized stamp. I think he'll be signing autographs and so forth. I'm not aware of him, doing a comic routine or anything.
Yeah, but he has enough of a name where when you talk about famous stamp collectors, he would be a famous stamp collector.
He does have a good name, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell them where it's at, what time, what days?
It's
because a lot of our listeners are in the West Coast.
Absolutely.
And they will show up.
It's 2 weeks from today, and I should look at a count. I should know this off the top of my head. But
you're going to be there, right?
Yes, I will be there. It's
Okay.
March 3rd to 5th. It's at the basically the Reno Convention Center, which is connected to the Atlantis Hotel Resort. It runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That'd be the 3rd, 4th, 5th. It's 10 to 6 on the Friday and Saturday. It's 10 to 4 on the Sunday. It's free admission. And even most of your viewers, or listeners, I guess I should say, are already stamp collectors. But another thing that's offered is the what's in your attic, or stamps in your attic, where we'll have free reviews of stamp collections for people who may have inherited something or are looking to sell it.
Yes, absolutely. As soon as Bill gets here, I'm going to talk to him about that service that the APS
That'll be
provides.
great. Yep.
Yeah. Anything else you want to?
Nope. We would love
other
to
than
see.
Tell everybody to join the APS.
Yeah, absolutely. Or visit our website at stamps.org. There's a lot that's available free, even if you aren't an APS member, although we want you to be an APS member. I mean, individuals looking for stamp dealers in their area or looking to buy stamps via our online stamp store or information on U.S. new issues. Those are some of the most visited things on the site, but there's a lot of information, over 1,000 different pages on the website.
You brought up something that could be a very good interest to people. Tell them a little bit about your circuit books. Tell them how it works, because I remember, and this was years and years and years, decades ago, and I always thought, I can't get these, or it's going to be so expensive, or I have this big hassle that I have to bring it to the post office. I found out that wasn't the case.
Well, we have two major options for members to buy and sell stamps. One is the stamp store, which is online listing. There's over 300,000 items, typically from a few dollars to a few $100s. There are a couple items in the thousands, but that's the minority. And everything is pictured. Anybody can go on, see. It's a first come, first serve. It's not an auction. It's a net price, and you can put them in a cart or on a wish list, but somebody else can buy them out from underneath you if you just leave them sitting in your cart or in your wish list. But and the orders are fulfilled the next business day. So a lot of people use that, and then we still do have what are the traditional circuit books. They're like approvals. They're mounted in books from 8 to 16 pages. The owner, puts the catalog number down, the catalog value, and the price they want. We have them grouped into about 165 different categories. Many are single country, but larger countries, there's a Great Britain pre-1900 circuit or a Great Britain Mint. United States, there's about 35 different categories because something like postage dues or pre-cancels, they have their own circuits. So members can, and the circuits are only available that you have to be an APS member to buy or sell through the circuits. The internet stamp store, anybody can buy. We send them out. You can look at them, take the items that you want, and basically send them on to another member. We provide an address label for the following member for you to mail them on. So it is going to cost you typically $5 or $6, probably closer to $6 to send them on to the next person.
But you get to see like 20 books worth
yeah,
of stamps.
Normally it's closer to 10 probably.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Absolutely. That's the standard. We also have clearance circuits, which are books that circulated for a period, typically 18 months, and then anything that's left, the member can say, okay, just sell it all or nothing at half the original prices.
Whoa.
So the circuit books initially, on average, are priced at about a third of Scott catalog. So if there was $200 in the book and there's $50 that was unsold, that $50 would now be $25. It would probably be closer to between 15 and 20% typically of the catalog value. I've seen them as low as 5% or 10%. That's unusual. But
I used to do sales books all the time. I would sell, but then I was a member of a stamp club, and the stamp club would get the circuit, so I'd buy at the stamp club, and then I'd sell by sending them directly. And honestly, it's very fun putting them together. It gets you some extra money so that you can buy more stamps, get rid of your duplicates.
Absolutely. I mean, even things like current U.S. commemoratives. Those, a lot of people don't get enough mail to get all the current U.S. commemoratives. Some people will do books with those at 20 cents each, and they will actually sell. So yeah, and you're right, a number of our chapters, APS has almost 500 chapters, which are clubs around the country, San Jose Stamp Club, Mesa Stamp Club, anywhere in the country, and they can receive a circuit up to each month if they want, and many of them will use that for a program.
Yeah. Well, great.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Any last words?
Keep stamp collecting and keep enjoying the hobby, and please consider APS membership at stamps.org.
Nah, don't consider it. Just join.
That's even better.
Thank you for joining us for episode 113. Continue the conversation at Stamp Show Here Today on Facebook. You can ask us questions, see pictures of stamps, make comments, and add to the conversation on Facebook. You can also ask the experts your stamp questions at bluepaper@gradingmatters.com. You can listen to all of our past podcasts at stampshowheretoday.com, podbean.com, iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast listening platform. And as always, keep collecting.
We had a quarrel. Our lovers